Hello? How can I help you?
To get a full view of your journey, could you walk me through a quick timeline, just in your own words? So firstly, what were your interests and passions in high school? What did you study and why? What was your first ever job, even if it wasn't a serious job? How did your career path unfold from there to where you are today? And finally, what are you doing now?
It started on a Sunday in 1969 when I was born in Somerset West in Cape Town, and grew up in a very small little town. Did funny hobbies like woodwork and the outdoors. I've always liked the outdoors. Then went to high school, went to the army at that stage, and like many people, after or in my army days, I realized I have to do something, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I went for some career guidance. Guys said you can actually go into marketing, human resources, or nature conservation. So that will tell you that even I didn't know what to do. I was also confused. I was also not sure. So at that point, we didn't have Google and all those wonderful things, ChatGPT and any AI. So I went the old traditional route. I went and I spoke to an HR manager at a big firm. I went and I interviewed a marketing manager of a big firm. I never really considered the nature conservation, so I gave that one a skip. And then after learning what they do for a living, I realized that marketing is my passion, and that's where I wanted to go. So up until that point, I wasn't too sure what I'm going to do with my future and with my life. So I went and I studied marketing, and typically after that you get your first job. As a student, I think my first job was being a salesperson in a hardware store. At that point it was quite nerve-wracking because I didn't know that much about hardware and mixing paint and all the funny stuff. So I was a young guy running around, and if a client asked me for something, I would usually say, let me find out from somebody else. So I realized that I will definitely not have a future in the hardware industry. Studied marketing, graduated, and then started with a listed company, and I worked for them for a few years. Fast forward to today. Today I'm actually the CEO of an IT company. Very interesting because as a marketing background, I never programmed, or I can't program one sentence or any line of code, but I think the business principles that I learned through marketing and all the businesses that I was involved in gave me the background to run a business today, even if it's in IT or in programming.
Then versus now, bit of self-reflection. If you think back to your early 20s, how did you feel about the future back then? Were you confident, clueless, scared, excited?
Yes, all of the above. I think even back then, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what the future will deliver or what the universe plans for you. So although I started with marketing and studying marketing, later on I also did some lecturing in marketing. So my whole life I've had a passion for marketing, but I think it's more the business side of it. But as a young kid, I was scared because you do not know where you're gonna go. You don't know, will you make a success of anything? I mean, probably one of the biggest things is that I remember after graduating, I went and I applied for a job, and I was quite arrogant and confident because now you've got the theoretical background. And the marketing manager that I interviewed at that point, he said, you know what, you perhaps got the scientific knowledge now, but now what you need to do is to try and figure out how do you apply the science, and that's the art behind doing business. So the one side is you need the theoretical background, but the other one is how do you apply what you know. So yes, I was insecure, I was scared, and luckily it worked out in the end.
Now, looking back, what mindset or belief helped you grow from that version of you into the person you are today?
I think a very important thing is to believe in yourself, to trust in who you are and what you do. That does not mean that you will not fail, but a very important thing I believe is not to try and copy other people. I think you need to learn from other people because life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself. So learn from other people's mistakes, but don't try and copy somebody else. Be yourself, be original, and try. There's most of the successful people in the world, they didn't succeed from the first try. I mean, if you go into Steve Jobs or KFC or any of the well-known brands, at some point you fail. And I think the challenge is also after failing, what do you do? You're going to fail, but what do? Do you just stop and give up, or do you keep on trying?
What's something you wish you emotionally or mentally knew in your early 20s?
Life is a contact sport. Life is about people. Business is about people. And sometimes you don't have the confidence. You don't have the confidence to stand up and speak in front of a crowd. You don't believe that you look like some kind of Hollywood star. You don't believe you've got doubts about your voice and your pronunciation and your language, especially if it's not in your first language. So I think self-doubt is something that will keep you back, and perhaps it is just to go out there and try. Don't worry too much about it. Don't sweat the small stuff, and be true to yourself again.
If you could go back and do one thing differently in your career or business journey, what would it be?
At a certain point in my life, when I was younger, I was quite comfortable with the fact that if I could redo my life, I would do exactly everything the same. And then you get failures or setbacks, and you think to yourself, if I can go back, I'll change that. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm back on the first chapter again, where I say, everything that happened in my life, good and bad, created the person that I am today. And sometimes you want to fight it, and sometimes you want to control it. I'm a bit of a control freak. And then you realize that you cannot control the universe. You cannot. And everything that you do and everything that happened to you is actually part of life and part of becoming the person that you should be.
What is one thing you would 100% do the same way again?
I started off in the corporate world. Got my first job in the corporate world. worked for roughly 10 years in a corporate environment. And at some point, the business that I worked for, or the bank that I worked for, actually closed down. And I was retrenched, and I went for interviews. And in one of the interviews with a big bank, I will not name the bank today, in that interview I realized I'm not corporate material. I actually stopped the interview. I apologized. They did not like the fact that it was very important people in the interview. And at that point I realized that I'm not cut out for corporate world. Some people might think that was quite arrogant. It was never my intention to be arrogant, but it's an epiphany that I had, and I think if I have to do something again, I will start off with my corporate. Got a lot of experience. In some cases, I learned how not to do things in the corporate environment. But the fact that I saw the light and I realized I want to go on my own and be an entrepreneur, I think that is, although it was a rocky start, I'm glad I did that, and I will do that again.
Let's say someone just graduated and they are sitting on their bed today, stuck and unsure where to start. List 3 things you would tell them to do this week to get a move.
Explore your interests. Find out what it is that you like to do and not to do. Do stuff that will teach you more about yourself. What do you like? What you don't like? What happens if you're in a crisis? How do you react? How do you deal with stress? So I would suggest, and the third thing is explore alternatives. Even if it's something quite creative. I like the story about Steve Jobs. He went to calligraphy classes, and that was just to waste some time. And then a few years later on, he started his Apple business, and Apple was the first PC with different type fonts. So every small little thing you do, every small little short course, even if it's go and do a barista course, even if if you're not planning on becoming a barista, but all those small little things that you explore and you learn actually makes you a more interesting human being and help you with your career path and your life. Go and do a sailing course, even if you're never going to get on a sailboat in your life, but learn yourself, understand yourself.
Tools, resources, and some real talk. I'm building a resource gallery or library for the viewers. So can you name 2 to 3 specific tools, books, websites, or free resources that really help you or would have helped you when you started out?
I think I'm going to use what we actually do in our business today and what we implement, and perhaps that will help the viewers with some guidance. So today, when we look for candidates to come and work for us, we actually focus very much on the person, whether it's a creative person or whether it's a person that likes details. So two tools that we use, Kobus Neethling's brain profiles, that actually helps you with understanding yourself, understanding whether you're a creative person, a big picture person, or a detailed person. It's not to say whether you're clever or what's your IQ. It will help you understand yourself and what it is that you want to do with your life. very close to that is a tool, international tool that they call Myers-Briggs, which is a personality type tool or an indicator. And again, and that's something that we use because we believe that if you come and work for us, we actually want to apply you in a field that interests you and that you like. For instance, I'm a right brain person, so I'm a big picture person. Sometimes you have to go into the detail of anything, but I don't, and I can go into detail, but I like the big picture. And if you put somebody in the wrong job, that's where you actually get frustrated in your job and you don't like your job. On Sunday evenings you go into depression because you have to go work tomorrow. And we believe pretty much that life is too short not to enjoy your job. So try and understand what is it that you like. And I mean, those are two tools, but I think the internet and the apps available is vast. But those are two things that we still practically utilize in our business today.
Let's say I took away your whole network of people, and your bank account. You're starting from scratch today. What would be your first 3 moves this month to rebuild your life, career and business?
I'm not too sure if the bank account that disappears, if that's a good or bad thing, but okay. If you take away my contacts, I think that will be quite a devastating thing in my life. I believe that if you sit down and you make a list of all the contacts and that's why I say life is a contact sport. It's about the people that you know and the knowledge that surrounds you, because you do not have everything yourself. You do not have all the knowledge, and even if you go and Google, you probably won't get everything or get answers to everything. So I must say, one of the most valuable things today is the network of people that I know. And without that, I will probably go and sit in the desert for 2 weeks just to try and figure out where to start. So yeah, if I have to break your question, as long as I've got my contact list, I'll come up with some ideas and some passion. And that's perhaps a lesson for young people as well. It is. I also had a lot of mentors in my life that I learned a lot of stuff from. So if you take that away, I will take more than 2 or 3 weeks to start again.
Rapid fire questions. What's a failure that made you laugh later in life?
Getting retrenched, if I can call it a failure, because at that point I felt like I made the wrong decision to go and work for a company that wasn't that stable. So getting retrenched at the age of 29 with a lot of house and car debt and not knowing where to start and what to do. I think that was the one that today I laugh about it. At that point it was the lowest part in my life. Looking back today, that actually forced me to go into a direction and to go on my own. So today I laugh about it.
Coffee or tea when planning your empire?
Coffee.
What's your hustle anthem, the song that gets you in gear?
Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see.
Real world readiness and lessons. So we all have this idea of what work and entrepreneurship will be like. What was your expectation and how different was reality once you were actually in it?
It sounds romantic to be an entrepreneur. It sounds cool. It sounds as if you've got all the freedom. You're your own boss, you don't report to anybody. And then reality kicks in. You're responsible for people that work for you. The buck stops with you. There's nobody else that you can blame. You have to do and know everything in the business. Although you employ people to assist with the business, the responsibility is always mine. So it's almost a bit of a fairy tale. You think it's one portion, it's beautiful, and it's without stress and without hassles, and then there's this reality kicking in.
Was there ever a moment you felt totally unprepared, like presenting yourself, public speaking, writing a CV, or even using English professionally? And how did you handle that?
Except this interview? Yes, many a time. When I grew up, I always thought Afrikaans being my first language, I always thought to myself that I'm not quite proficient enough in English. One of the biggest fears of human beings is public speaking, and I was quite true to that. Luckily, after being retrenched, one of the avenues that I explored was actually lecturing in marketing. And what made it nice was the fact that I know my marketing theory and my marketing stuff. But now you have to get up in an auditorium and talk to 30, 40 or 100 people. And that was a good thing, because it actually taught me to deal with your nerves and to get over it. And whether you speak to one person or a million people, once you've got that under the belt, you're actually okay.
Okay. What's one underrated skill you wish you started working on earlier?
Starting a conversation. Walking up to somebody that you don't know and starting a conversation and learning how to interact and how to learn more from other people. So it's perhaps a people skill thing, basic communication. Yeah, I would say that was probably something I would start early on.
CV's networking and building value. So, a lot of people feel super awkward when networking. Can you give me a real example of how you started? Like a place you went, someone you messaged, or platform you even used?
I think the main networking that I do is through the business and in our industry. And you go and attend workshops and conferences and start talking to other people and finding out what is it that they do. So my networking is pretty much from an industry perspective, attending industry events and meeting new people there.
What's one thing that actually makes a CV stand out in your field? And what do most people forget that actually matters in a CV?
Originality. And attitude. Those are again the stuff that we look for when we employ people. So I know there's a CV template on the internet or CV templates, but try and again be yourself. Don't do everything like the mainstream. Try and stand out above the rest. Be yourself and don't put stuff on your CV that you think the employer is actually looking for. It sounds weird, but be yourself.
What advice do you have for someone who wants to build a career or brand, but have no experience?
So when I was a young kid, that was even relevant at that point. So, and at that you would apply for a job and they say, but yes, everything looks okay on the CV, but you don't have experience, okay? but you can't get experience if you don't get a job. So I'll tell you what I did. So I actually volunteered with at a lot of places where I learned stuff without ever getting paid. But to put something on a CV, and I know today it's difficult because your most precious thing that you can sell is your time, but it's a payoff that you have to do to try and get some knowledge and some experience, even if it means that you have to work for free or for minimum wage.
We always hear about soft skills and personal branding, but what did that actually look like for you in real life? For example, did you practice how to speak clearly in interviews, dress a certain way for your first impressions, follow up with people on LinkedIn, or share things you were learning on social media? What were the small actions you took that helped you build credibility, stand out, or just show people that you're someone worth noticing?
I think I've coming back, I mentioned it earlier in the interview, try and be yourself. Don't dress to impress other people. Try and find who you are and living up to that standard. There's an old saying, be yourself because everybody else is taken already. So I would again say, be original and be yourself.
Legacy questions. If someone only remembers one thing you said today, what do you hope that is?
Legacy question. Again, be yourself, and you cannot predict the future. Go with the flow.
What does success mean to you now versus when you started?
Enjoying your job. Your job is a big portion of your life. When we start up, when we're young, it's all about money. The older you get, the more you realize that working for 30, 40 years, looking back, you will never remember your paychecks or the end of the month that you got to pay all your bills. But looking back, you look at the times that you actually had fun, that you enjoyed yourself, that you had successes in starting something and finishing it, making it a success. Although it's very nice to drive the Porsche, it's not always about the Porsche. Enjoy what you do, and then life will be very short.
Thank you. Cheers on that. Waardeer je tijd zo bruin.
Fantastisch.
Dat was so funny. Kan ons hierdie altyd doen?
Nou dan.
Nee.